David Bowie once said, "Aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always should have been." Good day to all my viewers. Today, I would like to take 3 short minutes of your time to discuss my study entitled Correlation between Perceived Environmental Barriers and the Sensory and Cognitive Outcomes Among Older Adults. This research aims to determine the relationship between perceived environmental barriers and the sensory outcomes, as well as to find out the association between perceived environmental barriers and cognitive functions in older adults. Older adults are defined as individuals aged 60 years old and above. Now, this study is a cross-sectional study and participants were recruited through purposive sampling from various locations across KL. The inclusion criteria for this study includes older adults who must be aged 60 years and older with no known history of dementia and is able to converse in English or Bahasa Malaysia. On the other hand, our exclusion criteria excluded participants who are wheelchair bound or had a history of stroke. All participants then met the criteria were invited to participate in the study. When the environment restricts older adults' function, they become known as environmental barriers. Our participants' perception of these barriers can then be measured via the Craig Hospital Inventory of Environmental Factors Questionnaire, otherwise known as the CHIEF questionnaire. The CHIEF questionnaire can be further divided into 5 distinct domains of the environment, which are policy barriers, physical barriers, work barriers, attitude barriers, and service barriers. Next, their cognitive function is assessed with the identification of dementia in elderly African stool. Sensory outcomes consist of hearing and vision. Hence, we measured their hearing abilities through pure tone audiometry and the hearing handicap inventory for the elderly questionnaire, or the HHIE. The HHIE can be further divided into social and emotional domains. Therefore, we get an objective and subjective view of the participants' hearing. Their vision status is assessed by obtaining their visual acuity with a tumbling E-folding chart. In total, there were 84 older adults, of which 30 were male and 54 female. Their ages range from 60 to 87 years old. 38% of the participants were Malay, 33.3% Chinese, and the remaining 28.6% were Indian. The following table reveals the correlation values for each of our variables. There is a positive, moderate correlation between hearing thresholds in the better ear and perceived environmental barriers. Furthermore, hearing thresholds correlate poorly with service barriers, indicating that older adults with poor hearing are more likely to experience difficulty in accessing care and assistance from others. This could be because older adults with poor hearing are more likely to have difficulty with communication, which impacts their interactions with others on a daily basis. Meanwhile, the total HHIE score and the emotional domain of the HHIE has a low but positive correlation with environmental barriers in older adults. Interestingly, visual acuity in the better eye and cognitive function did not correlate significantly with environmental barriers. This may be because older adults have developed compensatory strategies to overcome mild cognitive impairment. So why is this research important? Based on what we know, sensory and cognitive functions will decline as we age. Unfortunately, the number of older adults in Malaysia is increasing with time. The Department of Statistics Malaysia expects the population to make up 14.5% of older adults aged 65 years and above by 2040. Therefore, the prevalence of sensory disabilities in the population will rise significantly. Currently, we know that individuals with disabilities face more severe environmental barriers than non-disabled individuals, and environmental barriers were found to be negatively associated with social participation. Hence, there is an urgent need to identify the environmental barriers because it would allow healthcare professionals to understand and better manage the environmental limitations and the disabilities that exacerbate environmental barriers among older adults to improve their quality of life, social participation, and access to services. In conclusion, weak correlations were observed between all hearing outcomes and perceived environmental barriers except for the hearing thresholds in the better ear, which reveal a moderate correlation. There is also no association between perceived environmental barriers and visual acuity or cognitive function in older adults. Thank you.